Hey everyone, and welcome to the Jack of All Trades podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Musso, and I feel like we have so much to catch up on. Honestly, it's been a while since I've been able to sit down and record. The last episode was pre-recorded, and also with this only coming out every 3 weeks now, there's just more space in between. And yeah, I've been so busy. I graduated college, and then I went to Germany for a bit, and then I was sick for a bit when I got back, and then I started my career job, and so that's been keeping me busy and tired, and maybe I'll provide more details on that some other time. But yeah, it's just been kind of crazy, so I'm glad that I can finally sit down and record this for you guys. And I wanted to talk mostly about my recent trip to Germany because that was such a cool experience, and honestly, there were so many fun little memories from that. So I really want to dive into that. If you've listened to previous episodes before, you know that I do love to travel, and I've been very fortunate growing up to be able to travel a lot. So it's kind of weird because since I love to travel so much, some years are more travel heavy than others, but obviously life gets busy and traveling costs money and planning ahead and all this stuff. So some years I'll have like a big trip. This year, that big trip was Germany. Other years I won't, but I'll have a lot of little small trips or little weekend trips or just trips to local places. And this year already, I've been doing so much traveling. Like, honestly, it's kind of crazy, and I'm so lucky that I've been able to. But just even kicking off the year, I went down to Texas for a bit, and I was down there for New Year's Eve and then a little bit into January. And that, mind you, I was coming straight from Canada because I was up there for a weekend. So Canada to Texas, and so I was in Texas. I also took a weekend trip to New York City. I also took a long weekend kind of solo trip down to Florida to visit a cousin, and then this big Germany trip as well. So I've been very lucky this year. But anyway, now I'm, kind of locked into a career and will probably be doing less traveling for a little bit, unfortunately, but that's just the way life goes, I guess. But yeah, let's dive into Germany because there were some interesting stories for sure. I went with my brother and my cousin. We've done trips together before, the three of us. So we did a little Montreal trip a few years ago. And then 2 years ago, the three of us went to France, and we also stopped in Belgium and Monaco. And it was just really cool. So the three of us kind of like to travel together. And we're already talking about our next trip. And we're like, maybe Japan 2028. Like, that would be cool, right? So yeah, we'll see what happens, but we went to Germany and it was so much fun. Honestly, I didn't really have clear expectations, I guess, of what it was going to be like, but I would say that it exceeded any expectations I did have. My role in the group when the three of us are planning trips is I'm like the planner of what we do and like the attractions, because generally it's actually perfect. The three of us, we blend together very well when we're planning trips, but yeah, we figure out kind of what country or what area we want to go, and then maybe we kind of figure out a rough route, but I look into sort of what towns would be cool to see, what things would be cool to see, and then I try and find all the attractions, and of course we're traveling on a budget, so I try to find as many free attractions as possible, and then we splurge on a few fun things, and I just love getting to look into everything that we do and kind of help make that itinerary. And then my brother, he's like the planes and trains guy. How are we going to get there? Where are we going to stay? All of that, which is fine by me because I despise all of that. So he takes care of looking at flights and train travel and buses and anything like that, anytime. And during the trip too, he's like, okay, this is the stop we need to get off at on the metro or whatever they call the underground train in that country and whatnot. And that's fine because I'd rather just, walk along and not have to pay attention to where I'm going. And then my cousin, she does all the food mostly. So on the trip, when we're like, okay, we need lunch somewhere, she's pulling up all the places, looking at the menus, figuring out what's closest, what we want. And that's great too, because I also don't want to do that. Once I'm hungry, I want to just be told, okay, we're going here and we're going to eat here. And that's that's fine. So it blends together perfectly. Obviously, we all do offer input on everything, but it's just nice when you have that travel group that works so well together. Everyone kind of has their assigned roles. So yeah, that's kind of how it went. But we decided on Germany, and we ended up getting to see a really good mix of all of it. So we actually flew out of Boston, which we've done before. That's usually where we fly when we go to Europe. But this time we were supposed to have a direct flight, and then way before the flight actually was, they changed it. So we were going to have a layover in New York City, which was kind of annoying because it was like a very short flight, like the shortest flight ever from Boston to New York City, and then a layover and everything. But we knew that we were going to have a tight train connection once we got to Germany. And so for that reason, we were really hoping not to have to check our bags. We brought like just carry-on suitcases, backpacks, everything. But when we were in Boston, they were at the gate announcing like, okay, we're going to need people to volunteer to check their bags because we don't have enough room. So if nobody volunteers, we're just going to automatically have people in these certain boarding groups check their bags. And we were like, oh man, like let's hope other people volunteer, because we really did not want to have to try and deal with that, because it wasn't going to be in New York City. It was going to be, we would retrieve them in Germany. Like they would just go straight through all the way. So we were like, we really probably don't have time for that when we get to Germany, because we need to catch that train. But anyway, the gate attendant, he was really funny, and he was like, I see people avoiding eye contact, whatever. So we ended up having to check our bags. And so we were a little stressed about that. But honestly, we got so lucky so many times this trip. And this was one of them, was just the fact that we actually, spoiler alert, did make our train when we got there. But before we get there, the plane ride over, I think this was the longest flight I've been on. When we flew to France the first time, like when I went with my parents and brother, that was a pretty long flight. But honestly, I think Germany direct is longer by at least an hour. But then last time when the three of us went over to Europe, we had a layover in Iceland, so it was kind of broken up. But this time we had a long flight, but it was very comfortable. I would say actually some of the more comfortable plane seats I've been on, considering last time I flew to Europe, we were on Iceland Air, and wow, the most uncomfortable plane seats I've probably ever been in. I don't know what it was about them. They were just so awful. Like I could not get comfortable whatsoever. Not that I can usually get comfortable on a plane anyway, but this time we were on Condor, which is based in Germany, and it was really nice. And we this is kind of funny. We didn't think we were going to get fed. We didn't think that like the meals were included in the plane tickets we got and everything. Like we were traveling as budget as possible, like saving money wherever we could. So we really were like, we thought that we had the cheapest option, that there was no food provided. So we were just like, it is what it is. But we started seeing them come around with the food cart. And actually by we, I mean me, because my brother and cousin at this point were dozing, sleeping, whatever. And I was like, oh shoot, like I'm not 100% sure if this is included or not. I thought Ethan said he didn't think we got food, so I don't want to take it and like get charged for it, because again, we were trying to travel on a budget, right? So they start coming around, and first of all, the flight attendants were clearly like their native language was German. I mean, obviously they knew functional English, but it was already like most of the people in the plane spoke German, which is a language that none of the three of us know other than a few basic words. So they were coming around. And so already I knew I was going to have to like ask in English. And so once they get to me, she starts handing me this tray of food. And I kind of at first like wasn't sure what to do with it. I was like debating taking one and passing it along to Heather and then taking mine. But then I was like, wait, what if this isn't included? And so then it was so embarrassing. Like I asked her if it was included, and then she said it was. And so then I handed it to my cousin, and then and then took one. But the joke was that we were joking about how we were so like cheap and so on a budget that we had to like kind of ask like, oh, is this included? Is this free? Like, can we afford this? It was funny. And then also my cousin said she felt like a baby bird kind of like receiving its food from its mom, like with its beak up in the nest. You know, you get the picture. Like she was sleeping and then she literally woke up to this tray of hot food being like landed in her lap. And so it was like, what a way to wake up. But yeah, overall, flights were very smooth, both on the way and on the way back. I did watch a couple movies, one of them being the F1 movie on the way. And if any of you have seen it, such a good movie. I loved it so much. So that was how I passed my time. This was technically supposed to be our overnight sleep, but the time difference is, I think it's 6 hours between Germany and the east coast of the US. So it's 6 hour time difference. And our first flight was a morning flight from Boston. But then I want to say it was like mid-afternoon when we flew from New York City. I could be totally wrong. I really don't remember. But basically, when we arrived in Germany, it was morning and we had the full day ahead of us, but we were immediately getting on a train and going down to the southern part of Germany, like the Alps. So basically, this plane was supposed to be our overnight sleep, but it wasn't nighttime for our body clocks yet, so it was kind of just, it was weird. But yeah, we landed, and so we had to navigate like getting to where our bags were, and we had to pick up our bags since we had to check them, and then we had to find how we could get to the train station right from there. And we were gonna we also had to go through customs, right? Because it's, enter a new country, whatever. So we had to go through customs, and we were rushing because obviously you can't, like when you're waiting in a line like that, you can't rush that. But we knew that we had less than an hour before our train was supposed to leave, and like the time that we like landed, got off the plane. And so luckily, first of all, our train was delayed by 10 minutes. Second of all, we actually would have made it with like 2 minutes to spare. We got to the tracks, like our platform where we needed to be, and then just a few minutes later the train came. So we actually probably would have made it even if the train wasn't delayed. But that's the first instance of like, wow, we got really lucky with this. So because our other option, if we didn't make that train, was gonna have to be take a different train, like a regional one, later in the day, and it was gonna have like 5 different times where we had to change trains rather than just almost one straight shot. So yeah, it was a relief to catch that train. So yeah, we took I think it was the highest speed train from Frankfurt, which is where we flew to Munich. And we had maybe like an hour, a little more in Munich before we had to get on our next train. So we actually got lunch there. It was really nice. We walked around for a few minutes. So we got to experience Munich just a little bit. The weather was so nice. And then we got on our regional train, which took us down to Garmische-Partenkirchen, which was the name of the town that we were in for that first part of our trip. And we love staying in Airbnbs. Airbnbs are like such a win when you're traveling with, especially a group where you can split the cost. And honestly, in most of the European places we've been so far, it's actually cheaper to get an Airbnb often than to get a hotel. Plus with an Airbnb, like you have a kitchen, usually you can cook, you just feel like you're living there rather than if you're in a hotel room, you don't want to just stay in the hotel room, like unless it's some really bougie hotel, So if you're in an Airbnb, it's kind of nice to just be able to enjoy being there, living in the area, enjoying like the pace of it for a little bit. So that's what we usually try to do, and that's what we did this time. But when we got there, it was evening. It was like early evening, I think. I want to say when we got there, late afternoon, whatever, from the train. Keep in mind, we were running on not that much sleep. And even the night before the trip, most of us had not gotten much sleep either. So at this point, we were in the same clothes for effectively 2 days because, the time difference and the overnight flight and then hopping on a train. So anyway, we get there and we have to figure out, okay, how do we get to our Airbnb? So we're pulling our suitcases. My cousin and I had the rolling suitcases. My brother had 2 giant backpacks. And we actually had to walk for quite a ways. Luckily, later we discovered a shortcut, but this first time we didn't know about it. So we were trying to get to our Airbnb. We had to walk for a ways. But it was so beautiful, like this little town surrounded by the mountains, and then you could see like the snow-capped Alps, kind of just beyond some of the first tall mountains. And it was so beautiful. And there were wildflowers and the birds. The birds were insane. Like, that is one thing I'll note about Germany specifically. Like, yeah, we have birds at home and it's nice, but in Germany, the birds were so active and loud, but like in a pretty way. It wasn't annoying most of the time, and it was so nice. So anyway, we were having a very scenic walk, even though we're dragging our suitcases across, very uneven terrain, but whatever. Anyway, we get to where our Airbnb is supposed to be, like on the little road, and we had a really hard time finding it. We were looking for like the house number of it, and we ended up climbing halfway up this mountain practically. Like, we were walking up these really, really steep hills, trying to look at the numbers on all these houses, and they weren't like, nothing was making sense. We were like, where are we? Did we miss it? Like, none of this doesn't make sense. We're dragging our suitcases, our backpacks up this steep hill. And I mean, it was pretty, but we were at this point exhausted too. We're like, we just want to find it. So anyway, we ended up going all the way back down to the bottom, and we were like trying to look at the message from the host again and look at everything. And eventually we realized it was actually the very first place that we had passed. But that place had like several different places within the one. Like, the owners lived there as well. And then I think there was like another Airbnb attached that you could rent. So it was confusing, but we found it, and it was such a charming place. And we had views all around of like fields and mountains and the little town, and it was so cool. Like, one of the ski lifts, actually, because it's a big skiing area in the winter, was kind of right in our backyard, and like, no one was on it obviously, but yeah, there was this babbling brook, and it was just so peaceful. The most beautiful place ever. We had such a nice, spacious area, big kitchen, big living room, giant couch. And guys, the mattress, because we each actually got our own bed here too, the mattress was the most comfortable mattress I have ever slept on in my life. And I'm not even just saying that because I was tired. Genuinely, I don't know what it was, like the texture, how like soft or firm it was, just how it was. So I wanted to take it home with me so bad. I was like, I need this mattress. Anyway, it was so nice, but we got to just sleep with the windows kind of open to the fresh mountain air, and it was the best thing ever. Now, that night when we got there, we were exhausted, but we walked back into town to go to the grocery store because we needed food. And so we got ourselves dinner and meals for a couple of the other times that we were going to need. And we came back and we ate and we went to bed, and it was like 7:30 or 8 in the evening. Also, it gets dark way later there, so it doesn't get dark until like 9 or 9:30 this time of year. And so we didn't even see it get dark. We were so exhausted. That's the earliest I've gone to bed in such a long time, but we needed it. So yeah, we went to bed. The next morning we got up early, and what we wanted to do was, you can actually take this kind of not cable car, but like, I don't know what you'd call it, gondola? I don't know. I forget what it's called, but it's like a glass enclosed thing that you can ride to the very top of the Alps. And I've actually done that before in the French Alps with my brother and parents, but we wanted to do it here as well, to go up to the top of Zugspitze, which is, I think it's the highest point in the Alps in Germany anyway. We ended up getting tickets for that because right now it was shoulder season, like it was May when we were there, and it was the middle of the week and first thing in the morning. So we were able to get tickets. It wasn't sold out and it wasn't crazy busy. And I would recommend that if you're going to go, because we had gone to bed so early, we got up early and we hopped on the first car up. So we actually had to go to the train station first though and ride. Well, usually it'd be a train, but right now it was a bus because it was under maintenance. So we rode this bus to the base of, where you get on, and then rode up to the top of the mountain. But it was so beautiful, and we were in the first car up, so it really was hardly crowded at all. There's lots of spacious areas up there anyway, but it was so nice. But then like 30 minutes later or an hour later or something, when the next car came up, it was like, oh, like here's all the people. So definitely if you can, like, try and get on the first one. It was interesting. There was still snow blowing off the platforms from like all the snow. I don't know if that's like a every morning thing that they have to do, but they're just snow blowing and it's just shooting off the edge way down into the abyss below. Like, it was kind of interesting. But it was so beautiful, and we really lucked out because it was supposed to be pretty rainy, but that was like our one window of time where it was going to be a little more sunny. Perks of having a brother that's a meteorologist is that he is able to kind of keep an eye on that weather forecast and be pretty accurate with it. So we were able to plan accordingly, and it was so beautiful. We could see the lake down below, and we could see all the Alps in Austria as well, because the other side of that mountain like went down into Austria. We could see the kind of glacier skiing and everything, and it was just so breathtaking. It was beautiful. I could just, stand up there for such a long time looking out. Like, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I would recommend it. Doesn't have to be the German Alps, but anytime you can see the Alps, do it, because it is so worth it. It's so beautiful. And we lucked out because even by the time we went down, like, it was starting to cloud in a little bit. And so even if it's not cloudy, like down at the bottom, it can be cloudy at the top. But anyway, we took our time up there. And then once we came down, there was a hike we wanted to do where it was like this 4-mile loop around the lake that we could see from the top. Lake Ebsee, I think is what it's called. And it's honestly, as far as hikes go, I would rate it pretty highly because I'm someone that does not really like hiking. I grew up in a hiking family, but I don't really like it myself unless it's a pretty short hike that's like scenic pretty much the whole way, or really challenging and adventurous and like scrambling over crazy boulders and things, but a shorter hike. I'm not one for a long all-day hike through the woods for just the view at the top. Like, that's not me. So this hike was honestly really nice because it was on a trail that some people were biking as well. Like, it was basically just this kind of dirt path around the lake, and there was some change in elevation, but nothing too crazy. And there was lots of spots where you could go down to the beach, and actually you can rent kayaks or canoes and go out on the lake. And some people were doing that and having a little picnic on one of the mini islands in the middle, and that would have been so nice. Like, if we had the time, I totally would have loved to do that as well. But yeah, we did this hike around the lake, and the whole time you have just stunning views of the Alps above you, and it's gorgeous. And we had beautiful weather, like honestly perfect hiking weather for me, because there were parts of it that were still actually pretty cool temperature wise. And we had our lunch with us. Like, we had got groceries the night before to have for lunch that day. So we just kind of, towards the end of the hike, we sat on these rocks by the water and ate our lunch looking up at the Alps. And it was just the most peaceful, beautiful, breathtaking thing ever. Like, such a great lunch spot. You can't beat it. But yeah, then we had to get back. We had to catch the bus back. So we rode the bus back to kind of where we were, like where we were staying. I mean, we discovered the shortcut. So luckily, once we figured that out, it was a much shorter walk from that part of town to where we were actually staying. But yeah, I think we were pretty tired after that. And it was like mid-afternoon, whatever. We were like, let's just enjoy our Airbnb again. Because again, if it was a hotel room, it would have felt like, okay, well, we should still stay out and do stuff. But because it was such a nice Airbnb where it was really just, we felt like we were living there in the Alps and everything, we didn't feel bad about going back and just having some time to relax. And that is one difference from other trips that I've taken. This trip specifically, I feel like we were very busy and we saw a lot, and we averaged almost 20,000 steps every single day. But we also somehow managed to have a lot of kind of downtime, quiet time, like just chill. I actually read a book, and I never do that on vacation, even if I bring one, because I usually bring one. But I'm like, okay, well, that was delusional of me, like as if I actually was going to have time to read this. No, this time I actually read an entire book on vacation. So that's how you know. But it was just amazing, like sitting out on our balcony, breathing in the fresh air. Oh, it does you so much good. And even just going to sleep with windows wide open to the mountains. And I don't know, it was so beautiful. And one thing that was really cool too is like, from this place where we were staying, there was kind of a walking trail that we could see nearby, and we did use it a little bit as well. But people were out like at all times of the day, just the locals, going for runs, going for walks, going for bike rides, walking their dog, riding horses, even like middle of the day, in the middle of the week, or middle of the afternoon. And it's like, do people have to work here? Like, what? I know that a lot of places in Europe, it's such a slower pace and people have more time off and longer lunch breaks. And it's like they try and have a more healthy balance between work and life. And honestly, that's something that I very much envy. But yeah, it was so cool. It was so incredible. We really enjoyed that place. And then the next day it was kind of rainy, but the thing is, it was kind of rainy a little bit like each of the days that we were there in the Alps, but that does not stop people from being out and about. Like it really doesn't. So that was cool. But yeah, it was kind of rainy the next morning, but we had to we were doing this gorge that I had seen that was really cool. It was nearby. But we had like almost an hour walk to the start of the gorge, and then tickets were only 10 euros, so it was really affordable. But it's this gorge where it's like super, super narrow and tall, and there's this rushing river that goes through it, and the water is such a really cool color. It was like this really, really light bluish teal. It was really interesting. And yeah, it was kind of a little misty and everything was dripping because it was also kind of rainy, and you're walking under just a rocky overhang pretty much the whole time and through rocky tunnels. And then, yeah, it opens up to the river alongside you. And it's just it's so cool. I would recommend for sure. And so we did that. And then we walked back. Mind you, I was actually, I was nursing shin splints this entire time because, first of all, I definitely needed to get new sneakers. Mine were not the most supportive. And so doing that hike the day before, probably those shoes didn't help, but my shin splints that I had from like soccer and karate and so much running from that stuff years ago, they came back. And so I was like practically limping all the next day, but it was like, this is not good because we have to walk everywhere that we go. And again, averaging 20,000 steps a day, like we were definitely working it. But anyway, I tried not to let that ruin my experience, but we did the gorge, and then you can also do for free, like some hiking trails kind of around it. You can hike up above it and then stand on this bridge way above over it. And that was cool. We met this couple from, I think, the Netherlands. We talked to them for a bit. So that was really nice. And then we decided, you know what? We did our big thing for the day. We have nothing major planned. Let's go back and eat our lunch at the Airbnb and just chill. Because again, we had so much time to just chill on this trip, and it was amazing. But one thing that was cool was on our way back, I guess, I don't know if it was like a bunch of school field trips or if there was a school nearby and it was like getting out for the day or what. But there was these giant groups of school kids. They were probably like late middle school, early high school age maybe. And they all had their backpacks and they were all just walking like they had come from up the hill somewhere. And they were all just chatting, and everyone that went by, they were saying like, hello, or like, guten tag. So they were just saying hi and like being really friendly to everyone, like all of them. And it was really crazy. And so we walked by and they said hi. And so like I said hi back in German. And then eventually like some of the boys were asking like, where are you from? Where are you from? And so I was just like, America. And then they started chanting USA. USA as we walked away. It was really funny. And then we walked past a group of girls and they were all cheerful and like, hello. And yeah, it was really cool. Obviously, like I mentioned briefly, our German was very limited, and it was kind of weird for me being in a country where English wasn't the first language, but also the language that was the first language was not one that I was learning. Because for me, of all the international travel that I've done, the only country so far that I've been to where English wasn't spoken as the first language was France. And in France, they speak French, and I'm learning French. So I still had kind of like at least a basic way to communicate if need be. But in Germany, it was like, oh, I don't even really know much at all. And I was so busy leading up to the trip, I really didn't have time to prepare the way I wanted to in that department. So we literally knew like hello and excuse me and thank you. And I knew how to say I don't speak German. And I also knew how to say do you speak English? Just basic things like that. That's really all I knew. So next time I travel to somewhere that doesn't speak English, I definitely want to make sure I take the time and prepare a little more. But the thing about Germany compared to France, for example, is that in Germany, so many people speak English. Like actually almost every single person that I interacted with at all or met or overheard, like had some working English, like some people more than others, especially the younger generations, though pretty much all of them are like learning English as well. So honestly, it really was not much of an issue at all anywhere we went. Obviously, I never want to be that American that's just like expecting everyone to speak my language. Like I would have been more than happy to, pull out a translator or something if I had to and whatnot. And I always try and be as respectful as possible of stuff like that. But it definitely did lead to some awkward moments of, just because sometimes it's hard not to freeze up, when someone starts rattling off in a different language to you that you don't understand, even if you know how to say that you don't understand, like sometimes the words just leave you. And for me, what kept happening is I kept wanting to default to French because before, when I've traveled somewhere where English wasn't the first language, it was French. And so I kind of like defaulted to that of like, oh, I don't understand what they're saying. They must be speaking French. Let me just default to speaking in my French. But then, obviously it doesn't work because this is German. So yeah, it was interesting. It definitely was like such a weird challenge for my brain of like, okay, let's not speak French right now because that's not even the language that this is, like, chill out. But yeah, anyway, that was kind of a little side tangent, but we walked back to our Airbnb, we had lunch, we relaxed, and then we went into the town, like kind of the more downtown part that we hadn't been in yet, where there was just a lot of really charming shops and restaurants and businesses, and we went out to eat. And that was our first experience like at an actual sit-down restaurant in Germany. And so we did make a fool of ourselves a little bit when we walked in, because actually a lot of places in Germany where like you seat yourself, even if it's a sit-down restaurant, you go and you seat yourself. But it's not always very clear whether that's the case. And then, of course, like if they greet you in German, but then you don't want to immediately just start talking in English and assume that they understand you because that feels rude. But then sometimes you forget what to say and then it's just a whole thing. So anyway, we walk in and very clearly the waiters spoke a little bit of English, but not as their first language. And so my cousin like rattles off the most unintelligible English sentence she could have possibly said. She was asking like, she said, so you just seat ourselves, or like she slurred the words together kind of like that. And I was like, girl, even if I was like, I am a native English speaker and I barely understood what you said because of context. I know what you said, but I was like, that is about the most complicated sentence you could have said for someone that doesn't speak English as their native language. Like, slow down a second. Like, what are you doing? And it was funny. We kept kind of making fun of her for that. But yeah, they were very nice and very accommodating. And then my brother had an embarrassing moment at the end where, so he was going to go pay. And for those of you that don't know, in Germany and France and other European countries like that, a lot of times rather than them coming to bring the bill like they do in America, you have to let them know when you're ready because they don't rush you or anything. So you let them know like you're ready to pay. Sometimes that involves you actually going and flagging down a waiter or just going up to the front. And so that's what my brother was doing, except our waiter wasn't up there. It was a different girl and she had much less English, like much less English, which again, it's fine. Like I'm not expecting that someone has to speak English to us, but anyway, she didn't fully understand. And then my brother, he was like holding up his card trying to get across like, oh, we're trying to pay. And so what he didn't realize is that she knew that's what he was saying, but she was asking like what table we were at, and he didn't understand that that's what she was asking. And so he was still kind of like waving his card around, and he felt so ignorant and stupid after. But, we kind of just accepted our fate of like, we're going to be making a fool of ourselves like plenty of times on this trip. So I guess it is what it is. We'll just try and be respectful as much as possible. And it is what it is if we embarrass ourselves. So whatever. But yeah, we got some ice cream. We got some souvenirs maybe. It was nice. It kind of reminded me of Chamonix, like the little Alps town that I went to in France, except obviously there were some differences, but it's just such like little postcard looking buildings and houses and stuff surrounded by mountains. And it was so nice. And that was our time in the Alps because I think that was our last night. So it was a really, really beautiful area. And I would definitely recommend, I already said this a little bit, but if you can, like, go stay somewhere in the Alps, whether it's Germany or somewhere else, because it's such a nice change of pace to be able to just sit there and breathe in the mountain air and, you know, just really kind of ground yourself again, I guess, if that makes sense. So it was really nice. So nice. Yeah, the next morning we had to hop on a train. So honestly, this might be a hot take, but I found so far out of all the countries that I've done train travel in, I want to say that Germany was kind of the best. And I know that not everyone would agree with that. And obviously, not everyone has the same experience with everything. But for me, it was the best out of all the countries I've been in. So yeah, there's that. And we rode the train up to Berlin. That was our next stop. We might have had a train changeover. I don't remember. But one thing that you guys should know if you are planning on going to Berlin specifically, but also I think it's pretty common with a lot of places in Germany, is that it is not free to ride the metro. It's not called the metro. It's called something else. I forget. But the underground train just within the city, it's not free to ride it, but you might think that it is if you don't know ahead of time. It's actually kind of just the honor system. Like there's no gates or anything where you have to go through and scan a ticket. A lot of places are like that in Paris or just in England or in the US in cities where they have that, New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C. Like it's a very common thing where you have to go through a gate and scan a ticket. In Berlin, you don't have to do that. And just certain other places in Germany as well, but you still have to have a ticket. It's just that sometimes they'll have people come through like on the train and check them. And if you don't have one to show them, then you get fined, like a big fine. So there's plenty of people that do kind of just take that chance and ride it for free. And like that might work out for you, but really it's best not to take that chance. But the nice thing about it is like, if you have your ticket, so you know you're riding it legally and everything, like it's fine. It's such less of a hassle getting on because it's always just such a pain, like at the subway station, trying to go through the turnstile things and scan your ticket or get your ticket out. Like if you don't have free hands or if it's deep in your backpack somewhere and you're like, oh, I got to get out my card or my ticket. It's just like, it's kind of a pain. So I think it really streamlined the process, honestly, and made things so much nicer. It's just really cool because train travel in Germany in general, like you can get what's called the D ticket. It's like a Deutschbahn ticket or something, I think, but it covers like regional trains and a lot of regional and like local buses. And it can even cover, I think, like I said, the underground trains and everything. So that was something that my brother had found and we ended up paying for that. And so it was definitely well worth the money, and it just covers a lot of things and it saves the hassle and it's really convenient. So that's one thing that I would say that the German train travel system gets bonus points for. And also just things were a lot less confusing in general. Like in France, I don't know, for some reason, like there was always just such confusion about the way the cars were labeled and like where the seats were. And it was just always so confusing to find. We had no issues with that in Germany. Like it was so easy. I don't remember in England much about that because I wasn't the one like leading the group. So I don't remember how things were there, but yeah, things were just very well marked and very clear. But that's just something to know. It's not free. If you want to take that chance, sure, take that chance. But if they come through and scan tickets and you don't have yours, you're going to get fined. And that's probably not the way that you want to do it. So, but it does, I don't know, it just streamlines the process. So we thought it was cool. I think that evening we actually did do a little exploring. We went out to eat somewhere and then walked around a little bit, a couple little parks that we saw and just kind of walking around some of the side streets. And it was cool. But in Berlin, the place that we stayed, we had to go up. It was on the 5th floor, which is actually the 6th floor because in some European countries, the very first floor is not considered the first floor. It's actually the 2nd floor is considered floor 1. So yeah, we were on the 5th floor, so the 6th floor, and each floor had like 2 sets of stairs to get to it. So basically we're going up like 10 sets of stairs, no elevator or anything, of course, and we had all of our stuff the first time. And then German doorknobs, for whatever reason, like on all the regular doors, don't turn. Like it's just a hunk of metal and it doesn't turn. So you have to rely on like the key 100% as well. And so it took us genuinely took us like 10 minutes to figure out the key. All three of us had to give it a shot, and then finally we were able to get into our place, but we felt kind of stupid standing there like wrestling with this medieval feeling key and doorknob situation. But yeah, we got in, and that place we also had balconies. We love our balconies when we travel. And this one was kind of similar to the balcony that the three of us had when we stayed in Paris, where in Paris we had this balcony looking out over, these certain streets with a certain vibe, and then we could see the Eiffel Tower off to our right, kind of in the distance. Well, at this place, we were looking over streets and buildings with a very similar vibe, and we could see the Berlin Tower off to our right in the distance, which is kind of an iconic piece of the Berlin skyline. But if you haven't seen it, the Berlin Tower is like this tall kind of spire, and towards the top, it has this giant round globe-shaped like sphere, and you can go up in there, and there's a restaurant and other things too, and at night it's lit up. It kind of looks like a disco ball, like all this silver reflective stuff. It was really cool. My cousin and I from our bed where we slept could see it, and it was really nice. And one thing I love too is just sleeping with the windows wide open to the night. We got to do that in the Alps. We got to do that in Berlin. We got to do that at places on our France trip, and it's just so nice because, I mean, I can do that at home some, but it's just not the same. It's not the same at all. And just literally having the windows wide open, no screens, nothing, and you're just like up above the world. And I don't know, I just love it so much. And it's honestly such a perk, such a highlight of traveling abroad, the places I've been anyways. Yeah, we had a nice night. And luckily, right down below at street level, there was this cafe that we were able to go to for breakfast, both, that next morning and the morning after. And so that was really nice, being able to just walk down to the street and go and eat. And it was amazing. It was delicious. It was so good. But our first day in Berlin was kind of a walk around the city and see all the sights sort of day. So we were walking around and saw a bunch of the historical things. Obviously, Berlin has a lot of history, especially related to the Holocaust, but also just, the war and everything. Like there's so much. And so we saw a bunch of things, like a memorial to the kind of like honor the Soviets who helped with like kind of the downfall of Hitler and some of that stuff. And we saw like the Victory Column, I think it was, and yeah, there was just so many things. The Brandenburg Gate, which had so much political history to it. And, it was built to mean one thing, but then like during the Holocaust, it was used for all this propaganda. And then it was crazy. And actually the place that we ate lunch at that day was kind of in the middle of where the Berlin Wall used to be. And so in the floor, they had like these two strips of LED lights where the wall would have run exactly through. So I was like basically my chair was like right on the wall. So I was eating right where the wall used to be. But yeah, there was another like Holocaust memorial to the Jews. And there was just a lot that we were able to walk around and see that day. So it was really cool. And my feet were aching so bad because I was still nursing the shin splints. And at this point, it was crazy. Like we did an insane amount of walking. We really did. But I want to say that I don't know which night, I'm getting confused now, but one of the nights we actually got food from the same place that we had gone the first night there. But the equivalent of like a DoorDash, we ordered it to our place. I forget what the German equivalent is, but there was like a different name for it. But yeah, we were able to do that, which was nice. And then my brother had wanted to go back out at night to the Brandenburg Gate. My cousin and I were way too tired for that, but he went back out. But of course you have to wait because it gets dark so late. So anyway, he went back out and kind of had his solo main character moment, did that. But it was really nice. It was a very, very cool day, very interesting. And then the next day we went to a concentration camp, and that was honestly such a, like, I don't want to be cliche and be like, oh, it was a life-changing experience. But honestly, it was so just sobering and so crazy to be there. And I would recommend, if anyone ever gets the chance to go to a concentration camp, like, it is just an insane feeling to be there. And I do want to go and see like some of the ones in Poland sometime. But yeah, there was one not too far outside of Berlin. We took the train there, and it was just really crazy to like walk through these neighborhoods and then boom, concentration camp, like right there, there's houses like so close to it. And then you walk there and it's just, you read about it, of course, like, so many of us have had to read about that stuff in school and, learn about that stuff and all of that. But it like actually being there physically and being like, okay, this is where this stuff all happened is a totally different feeling. And it makes it so real. And even just walking down the pathway and that they would all the prisoners and everyone would come into the camp through, and just being like, imagine walking down this path but like as one of them instead of just a free person walking here to be a tourist. Like, obviously would have been a very different emotion that we would have been feeling if we were walking down that path in different circumstances. And so just walking through the gates and seeing like the difference between, the soldiers part of the camp versus where like all of the prisoners and everything were, like such a difference in quality. And they had a lot of like articles and just plaques and things that you could read and things that you could watch and different people's quotes and testimonies and different things too. And so it was crazy to see all the like brainwash, propaganda, all of that, like the lives that the officers were living too was just so different. And then walking through, there was this big like kind of courtyard plaza, and then you walk through the gate into like the prisoners part of the concentration camp, and there was pictures from like in the day when it actually happened, and in that same exact spot, same exact gate, even the trees, like a lot of the trees were the original trees that had been there then too. And it's just crazy being like, think of the things that these trees have seen, and like just physically standing on that ground and being like, I am standing right here where this picture was taken of these prisoners that were skin and bone and were being forced to shovel off this area, like just because, like it was so insane. And anyway, we walked around, and most of the buildings weren't standing anymore, like in that part of it, but all of the foundations were marked out like where all of them were, and then a couple of them had been like preserved or rebuilt to be like exactly like they were before. And so there was some you could go in. We were able to go into the prison area, like, and that was interesting too, because it was like basically a prison within a prison. Like we walked in there and it was surrounded by more walls, and then there were all these cells and everything, and then walking back out of the prison into just the regular camp, it was like, it kind of felt like a nesting doll of like, if you were to ever be released from the prison out into the other prison, like you still haven't made it very far, And then, we walked into some of the barracks and some of the buildings. Like we saw the beds, we saw the washroom area, and it was just so insane. Like some of the plaques on the wall talking about how certain people had been tortured in certain ways in those areas. And like this one room that was meant to be kind of like where they would wash up, there was some basins and stuff, and them talking about like how they would shove 400 men in that room at a time sometimes. And just looking at it, like I couldn't even picture 50 men in there. And of course I know these people would have been like skinny and malnourished, but just it was so insane. Yeah, I would say definitely well worth a visit. I think this podcast episode is going to have a part 2 because there's so much more I want to talk about, but I want to leave you with this really interesting story called Getting Locked in a Concentration Camp Bathroom. True story, actually. And let me set the scene for you. So we were on the far side of the camp at this point, like far from the entrance. And the only staff member that we had seen the entire time was literally the person at the front desk when we got there. Like it wasn't just a place where there were staff around everywhere. Like it really wasn't. And so there was no one really around, but we were in this building kind of on the far side where it was more like a modern built building, and there was just lots of information in there. And I noticed that there was bathrooms, so I was like, I should go to the bathroom while I'm here. So I went to the bathroom, and it was like a men's and women's, like each it was separate and it was like one stall each, like a one person. And so I went, and this is how these bathrooms were structured, right? It was a very tall ceiling, but it was like a very narrow bathroom, like very tall, very narrow. And the door went floor to ceiling with a doorknob and a lock. And then it's like a sink room. And then there's another door into the toilet part of it. So it's like two doors. I go in, I go to the bathroom, I come out. I noticed that my cousin isn't there, but my brother is. So she's in the bathroom, but she had to go into the men's bathroom because there was like nobody in there. And she's like, whatever, I'll just go in here so we don't have to wait as long. So we're sitting there, we're waiting for her. And I'm like, wow, she is taking a long time. Like she really must have had to do her business. Like she's taking forever. I was fine with just sitting there, but I had my phone on airplane mode because I was trying to save battery. And so I was just sitting there like, wow, she's taking a while. Eventually my brother, who luckily didn't have his phone on airplane mode, must have gotten a text because he was like, what does she mean she can't get out? Like kind of muttering to himself. And I was like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? And so he started walking towards the bathroom, which was like around a corner. But this building was kind of echoey. And because there was no one else in there, like if she would have started yelling, you would have been able to hear it probably. And so, yeah, he's like, what does she mean she can't get out? So I'm like, huh? Like, what happened? But I'm like, whatever. It's probably fine. Like, they'll figure it out. So he went around the corner to where the bathroom was. And then I hear him talking and her talking. And he was like asking her questions. And so I was like, maybe I should check my phone. So I checked my phone and I saw that there was actually a text from her to us saying, guys, I can't get out. And I was like, okay. And at this point, like neither one of them are back yet. So I decide, okay, I'll go check it out. I come around the corner and they're talking about like, they're discussing trying to pick the lock somehow, and she's like, it's stuck. Like I've been trying for already like 5 or 10 minutes. I can't get it. Like, I just can't, it's like broken and I can't unlock it. Like it was the outer door, not the inner one. Luckily, because I hadn't even thought about that until now. But if it was the inner door, we would not have been able to do anything. But it was the outer door. But we couldn't we were trying to pick the lock and we were having a really hard time with it. And we were trying to think like, okay, so if we can't get her out, like we don't know who we would call. So one of us would have to walk all the way to the front desk across the other side of this big concentration camp and be like, hey, so, and like, we didn't know what this building was called. And plus it was like, if we have to go all the way over there and get somebody and then they have to like call someone or whatever, by the time I get there, like, first of all, maybe she will have gotten out by then somehow, but also just the person at the front desk probably didn't have any sort of tool. And there wasn't the type of thing where there was like a key that could be used. It wasn't like that. So we were like, what do we do? And so she sends us a video from the inside and she's like, guys, it's literally broken. And so you could see that the actual knob that you would usually turn for the lock was broken off. So it was just this like stub sticking out of the door below the handle. And so there was like a groove on the outside that you could kind of, if you stuck something into it, you could kind of turn it. So we were trying to like do that, but it would turn like a centimeter and then stop, like hard stop. It was not going anywhere. So we're like, what? Like, it's actually broken. What do we do? And so then I'm like digging around in my purse to see what I have. Cause my brother's like, do you have a hairpin? So I pulled out a hairpin and we quickly realized that's way too weak. So then I pulled out one of those clips that's like those little mini binder clips. It's like black, kind of triangular with like the silver thing sticking off of it. And so I was trying to use the end of that to like turn it. And I got it turned like a centimeter and then like couldn't turn it anymore. And finally, we actually had the brilliant idea of, hey, let's use a coin. So we dig out our wallet and we stick a coin in the groove. And even that, like we were putting all the pressure on it that we absolutely could to get that. And then finally it like got unstuck and kind of came unlocked. And so the door swings open and my cousin's just kind of standing there wide-eyed. And then we all just like kind of had a laugh because it was funny, but it was also like, what if she would have actually gotten stuck in there and we would have actually had to call somebody and it would like have turned into this whole big thing? Like that could have been so much worse, but at the end of the day it was just like a funny story. And now we were all joking like that can be her next statement when she plays two truths and a lie with people. Like I got locked into a German concentration camp bathroom because, that's just like, that's such a good conversation starter, That's crazy. But anyway, that was a little bit of a side quest, and then we continued on with our tour, and we saw like some of the foundations and remaining ovens and things from like the cremation area, crematorium, whatever, and then like some of the areas where some of them were tortured more, or like some of their ashes were buried, or just all this stuff. It was really crazy. We finished our tour. We had lunch actually at a place near, like, it was kind of on our way back to the train station, and it was an Italian place. Like, the waiters there all spoke Italian, and so that was interesting. I was not expecting that, but actually Germany is a very, very, like, kind of international place, especially Berlin, and like some of the cities draw people from everywhere, so it's kind of a cultural melting pot. So really there's a lot of different cultures there, and so funny enough, we didn't even try any actual German food. Like, okay, we did a little bit, but we never went to any of the restaurants that were like specifically just German food, because to be honest, when we were looking at pictures, we were like, I don't even know what that is, and it kind of all just doesn't look that good. Like, so I'm sure maybe we would have enjoyed trying something, but we weren't too adventurous with that. But we did have a lot of good food while we were there. So yeah, we went back and we had the evening, I think at our place maybe. I don't remember exactly now, but it was really nice to have those full days in Berlin. And that was actually like the hottest day. The rest of the trip was pretty moderate in temperature, but that was a pretty hot day. But yeah, the next morning we had to get up and catch a train. But I'm going to do a second episode of this because there's more that I want to talk about, like the rest of the trip, but then also just kind of a bunch of like cultural differences and other little stories and quirks. And this episode is already almost an hour, which is way longer than I usually would like. So I will talk to you guys in the next episode for part 2. Make sure you stay tuned. I know it'll be a couple weeks, but yeah, stay tuned. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story times from this one. I definitely have more to talk about, but if you've ever been to Germany, or if you want to go to Germany even, like, comment down below and just share your thoughts, and I would love to hear from you. But thank you for listening, and hope you guys are having a great day, a great week, a great weekend whenever you're listening to this, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2. Bye.